And many thanks for watching KTN News. My name is Dennis Aseto. Welcome to this edition of Morning Prime. Today, Kenya is at 60. Jamhuri Day celebration was observed yesterday, with President William Ruto saying the country is out of debt. Also promising a lot of issues to do with healthcare, universal healthcare that has been rolled out by his government. Also, Kenya inviting everybody in. If you want to come to Kenya, you don't need a visa, because it says we have to break these borders to be able to have a country that appreciates everybody. If you want to get into the country, you will have to go to the internet, get yourself an authorization to be in the country. Just one of the many initiatives President William Ruto is putting in place to make sure that Kenya is accessible and Kenya is friendly. Kenya embraces everybody. As I said, today we have a packed-up show. We will be reviewing the president's speech, Kenya at 60. Where are we? Did that statement by the president make any sense to you? Do you resonate to it? I'll be having a lawyer. I'll be having an activist in the house. I'll also be talking to Kevin Osido from County Watch to just make sense of the president's speech. But now let's go straight to stories making headlines from yesterday's speech by the president. Now, Kenya will be a visa-free country from 1st of January 2024. Now, President William Ruto announced that the government will abolish visa requirements for all global visitors as it embraces globalization and opening of borders as a way to spur socio-economic development of the country. Now, KTN's political affairs reporter Daniel Kariuki followed the president's address at Uhuru Gardens and filed the following report.
President William Ruto led the nation in celebrating 60 years of self-rule, this being his second Jamhuri Day national celebration to preside over since he was sworn in as the fifth president. The celebrations were attended by leaders from neighboring countries, among them Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. Opposition leaders from Azimio coalition skipped the event. It is here that President Ruto announced there will be no more barring of visitors into the country.
It is with great pleasure, as President of this extraordinary country, to make a historic announcement of the decision of the government of Kenya. Beginning January 2024, Kenya will be a visa-free country.
Skeptics for visa-free claim such a move will expose the country to unwanted individuals who may want to harm the country. But the president in his speech defended the move, saying a digital platform has been developed to ensure that all travelers to Kenya will be identified in advance on an electronic platform.
All travelers will obtain electronic travel authorization as they come to Kenya.
Ruto has been championing the realization of a borderless Africa by advocating for visa-free travel. Recently, Rwanda declared visa-free for visitors coming in from African countries. During the celebrations, President Ruto hailed constitutional reforms realized since Kenya's independence. Other speakers cited various steps achieved by the country.
We are now committed to making sure that at every election, our democratic competition is less about personalities and tribes and more about issues and the national interest.
The freedom we gained in 1963 placed us in charge of our destiny, a destiny of freedom from poverty, disease, and illiteracy. Our country has made monumental progress in these fronts.
National unity means opportunity. No one from any part of this country will ever again, thanks to devolution, be abandoned to generational poverty and oppression because of their region.
Several heads of state from Ethiopia and Zanzibar were allowed to address Kenyans. The visa-free country declaration by President William Ruto is expected to open our path between the government and the opposition as the president seeks to open the country to the world. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News, Uhuru Gardens, Nairobi.
Thank you, Daniel Kariki, for that report. Meanwhile, President Ruto says Kenya is among the fastest growing economies in the world. According to the president, the country's economy is on an upward trajectory, sitting at position 29. This is despite the biting high cost of living that continues to weigh down on Kenyans. The president's remarks are also in stark contrast with what some of his officers have been saying about the real state of affairs. KTN's political affairs reporter Emmanuel Toh with our report.
President William Ruto has yet again come out on the defense of the country's economy, terming it one of the fastest growing globally. The head of state saying the economic situation has steadily become better, especially in the past 6 months.
Inflation is now 6.8%, down from a high of 9.2 a year ago. In the last 6 months, our GDP has grown at a rate of 5.4%, making Kenya the 29th fastest growing economy in the world, according to the World Bank. There is no question about it. What we have done together, the price we have paid together, and the sacrifices we have made together have rescued our country from an economic catastrophe.
President Ruto also announcing the country was out of the debt distress, despite the country's debt crossing the 10.5 trillion shillings mark.
I can now confirm, without fear of any contradiction, that Kenya is safely out of the danger of debt distress and that our economy is on a stable footing.
Ruto also said his government had cut down its expenditure in order to stabilize the economy.
We have had to cut back significantly on expenditure and to defer the implementation of critical development programs to stabilize our economy. The policy measures required to mobilize necessary revenues have been difficult, but they were our only way and means of escape.
President Ruto also assured Kenyans that the monies being collected from the taxes will be put to use prudently. The president's position on the state of the economy, however, did not touch on the issue of the rising cost of fuel, which continues to be a thorn in the flesh for many Kenyans.
Share the truth, say kimeumana.
The head of state's remarks come days after the CS for Treasury, Professor Njuguna Ndongo, told the National Assembly Finance Committee that the country was in an economic crisis and is unable to pay salaries on time.
By the way, I can tell you, we are even having trouble with salaries. We are clearing salaries with arrears. Okay? You know, just imagine that.
And yet again, the government has promised to address the issue of the high cost of living, promising to protect all the taxes collected from Kenyans and promising better days in the current administration. Emmanuel Toh, KTN News, Uhuru Gardens, Nairobi.
Now, the president says that we are out of debt, that this economy has stabilized. But just a few weeks ago, his cabinet secretary for Treasury, the man in the coffers who knows how deep our pockets are, whether there is money in there or not, says that the country is broke. The government is struggling to pay salaries. But the 60th statement by the president during Jamhuri Day says that we are out of debt and the economy has stabilized. Conversation piece, I must say. But now, the 60th Jamhuri Day celebrations was marked with pomp and color, as thousands of patriots gathered at the historic Uhuru Gardens to celebrate the end of colonial rule and with optimism of consolidation of unity and growth. Our reporter Grace Nganga captured the sights and sounds from the ground.
Tuesday morning, Kenyans from different walks of life thronged the historic Uhuru Gardens, known to have hoisted the Kenyan flag, to mark the first year of independence on December 12, 1963. The dignitaries arrived in style, from the elegant dressing to patriotic attires themed around the Kenyan flag.
His Excellency Johnson Sakaja.
Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja strode in memorably after disembarking from an iconic motorcar reserved for such occasions. The youth creation and sports themed event witnessed a beehive of activities, from consecration, presentation and trooping of presidential and regimental colors displayed by the Kenya forces to elaborate parades mounted by different Kenyan troops and students displaying the Kenyan flag.
A born-again Christian Asanta.
The celebration marking 60 years since the country became a republic saw the young and old entertainers claiming the stage, portraying through acts how the Kenyan entertainment sector has evolved from the old to the new generation. Flanked by DJ Afro, whose mastery of the mic wowed the audience. Unlike previous celebrations where Kenyans were entertained by various genres right from traditional dancers to renowned government parastatal choirs, this year entertainment focused on the youth.
Kenya, si tumeseeka mpaka inchi zingine zinakuja hapa kuona vile inchi mzee.
President William Ruto arrived at the stadium at around 9:48 a.m. and presided over the second trooping of the color ceremony for the 25th Mechanized Infantry Battalion since he became the Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces. The history of the military ritual is as old as the formation of armies in the 17th century. The event is significant for every unit in the Kenyan military, and it is recorded in the unit's history. Since Kenya's independence, the presidential and regimental colors replaced the colonial queens and regimental colors. The colors are the highest honor for any regiment or unit and are well guarded and treasured. Losing the colors leads to the disbandment of the regiment or unit. All infantry units and bases are presented with both presidential and regimental colors. Grace Nganga, KTN News, Nairobi.
And across the counties, Kenyans flocked to various designated grounds, national parks and museums to celebrate this important day. Some county leaders, however, poked holes on the government over the state of the economy. Bramwell Bwire with a roundup of the celebrations across the country.
60 years ago, on December 12, 1963, Kenya became a republic. Thousands of Kenya thronged various grounds across the country to celebrate the anniversary. At the historical Buhungu grounds in Kakamega County, Area Governor Fernandez Baraza called on the national government to expedite the completion of devolved functions by allocating the corresponding resources to counties.
And in the spirit of Jamhuri, I wish to appeal to the national government to complete the unbundling of devolved functions together with the attendant resources so that we have fiscal responsibility of resources following functions.
In central Kenya, governors who led the celebrations had divergent views on how President William Ruto's led government was running the country. From the privatization debate to the high cost of living, the leaders gave their opinion.
Nimejitolea kuenda kuongea na Mheshimiwa Rais ya kwamba MRM kama serikali kuu haitaki kuendelea kukua ndani ya MRM management, hiyo 55% ipewe shares za farmers. Watu wa Kirinyaga ndio wakuwe wana 100% ownership ya MRM.
Rais anajitolea, anafanya kazi usiku na mchana. Rais wetu saa 12 ameamka, saa 6 za usiku hajalala akingangana kutengeneza taifa hili. Lakini watu wengine wameonelea ni kana kwamba kuna mchezo pale, wanazembea, stima zinapotea hapa, generator tunaambiwa hiki, kesho ni hivi.
Tutoe kitu inaitwa, tutoe ile inaitwa ushuru, tunyone kama tunaweza jitegemea, lakini imekuwa ngumu sana. Na ndio tunasema lazima tujikakamue tukiwa Kenya kwanza. Lakini pahali, kwa sababu pahali Mkenya amefika saa hii, sioni kama ikiendelea tena mwaka moja ama mbili, sioni kama bado tutakuwa tumesimama. Kwa hivyo kama serikali mpaka tufanye bidii tuhakikishe kwamba ile tunaita the cost of living for Kenyans has come down.
At Kimana Stadium in Kajiado South Sub-County, Kajiado Governor Joseph Olelenko focused on the universal health care, saying after 6 years of independence, some local cannot access health care with ease, especially in the villages.
Tunaenda kuzindua ndugu hao, tunawaita community health promoters, ambayo watakuja katika vijiji vyetu, na nawaomba wananchi mfuate uelekezi wao, wapokee, kwa sababu tunatambua ili afya ikuwe bora ni lazima tuzuie magonjwa.
In Mombasa County, Governor Abdul Somad Sharif Nasri commemorated the day by visiting Ngorani prisons, commonly known as Jela Baridi, and the Coast General Teaching and Referral Hospital, paying fines for 18 petty offenders and 40 patients who had been discharged but unable to pay their bills.
Tumetoka Jela Baridi, inmates kutoka Jela Baridi, Shimo na Annex, wale ambao walikuwa na minor cases kama obstruction na vitu vidogo vidogo kama hivi, tumeweza kusaidiana na wao, tukatoa. Hii leo tuko Coast General, na tumesema kwa wale watu wetu wa Mombasa ambao wameweza kushindwa kulipa bili, wote waweze kutolewa. Katika facility hii ni watu 46, gharama yake na karibia, na nimemwambia Dr. Kandwala pia angalia wale walio katika mochari ili familia zao waweze kwenda kuwazika.
That is a roundup of the counties on the 60th year of Jamhuri, Kenya being a republic. And our Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi has defended foreign trips made by President William Ruto, saying they are for the good of the country. Mudavadi says with the current difficult moments Kenya is facing, there is need for an aggressive foreign policy and diplomatic onslaught as all countries are scrambling for the scarce global resources available for development. He was speaking at the Ulinzi Sports Complex in Nairobi during a wellness and farewell day for the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs staff, where they took stock of the success and challenges faced this year.
So we have to nurture our nation together, tell them that some of these are painful doses, but it is through those painful doses that we will get out of the difficult situation and be able to get the economy fully on track and the country moving. And that is why the trips that the president is making, giving confidence to the investors across the board, the globe, that Kenya is the right place for your investments, is so essential. And it is essential because, like a jigsaw puzzle, all these things have been put together. If there was no IMF World Bank program, it would be very difficult for the president to attract foreign direct investment. It would be very difficult. So we have a role to also explain to the people that it is a difficult moment, but we shall come out of it.
And the government has proposed policies and levies for civil registration, migration and citizenship services that will likely dent further the depressed pockets of millions of Kenyans beginning January 2024. Some of the fees have increased by up to 2,500, making it difficult to afford these basic services. But how did the government come up with these new rates, and what impact will they have on the lives of ordinary Kenyans? KTN's investigative reporter, Ode Francis, interrogates.
On the December 5th, 2023, the Ministry of Interior sent out a memo to all chiefs and assistant chiefs and other administrators, mandating them to urgently consult the public on the new rates of civil registrations of birth and deaths, as well as national identification cards and the passport services. But KTN News has determined that this exercise was not premised on the law that obliges public participation. The public was neither given enough time or information to share their views on the matter, nor did the government consider their feedback before adopting the new levies. KTN News has obtained a document detailing the proposed reviews charges, fees and levies for registration and identification services. The document reveals a shocking increase in all fees related to these services, which some increment is as high as 2,500%. A sample of the table shows the percentage increase in the fees. Certificate of birth and death will cost 200 shillings, up from 50 shillings, an increase of 200%. Late registration of birth and death will cost you 500 shillings, up from 100 shillings, an increase of 500%. Re-registration of birth and verification of certificate of birth or certificate of death for private Kenyan agencies will cost you 1,000 shillings, up from 100 shillings, an increase of 900%. Amendment of a record of birth will cost a Kenyan 1,000 shillings, up from 40 shillings, an increment of 2,400%. To verify or authenticate a government service of Kenya agency, one will have to pay 500 shillings, up from 100 shillings, which is an increment of 400%. Amendment or addition or altercation of name of child of a record birth will cost 1,000 shillings, up from 40 shillings, an increment of 2,400%. To obtain vital statistical reports for private entities, one will have to pay 2,000 shillings, which is currently free of charge. The same applies to vital statistical report for Government of Kenya agencies, which will cost 1,000 shillings, also currently free of charge. If a Kenyan died abroad, his or her death registration will cost $150, equivalent to 23,000 Kenyan shillings with the current exchange rates. The same applies to registration of birth of Kenyan occurring abroad, which will also cost $150, up from 50 shillings. The State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services proposes to introduce a subsidized fee of 300 shillings for the application of a national identification card, which currently does not attract any user charges. For duplicate and replacement of ID, the State Department for Immigration and Citizen Services proposes to review the fee for this application from 100 shillings to 1,000 shillings to align it with the cost of production and the current market rates. For one to be issued with an identification report, the government proposes to charge 1,000 shillings, up from 300 shillings, an increase of 233%. This fee is chargeable to individuals and private entities, but not government institutions. Staff working in government ministries, departments and agencies will have to pay 1,000 shillings, up from 100 shillings, an increment of 900% to obtain a civil servant's card. They will also have to pay 1,000 shillings, up from 100 shillings, an increase of 900% to receive staff badges, which previously costed 350 shillings. But how did the government conduct the public participation on these new charges? We went to one of the meetings to find out if the public was adequately consulted and informed. In Kajiado County, Ngaimurunya, Ongata Rongai, at the DO's office, those who attended the meeting did not know the agenda until the DCC announced it during the meeting. The participants here were students who had come to apply for IDs. The Constitution confers right to participation in decision-making is guaranteed under Article 118(1) and B and 196(1) and B, which directs the national and county legislatures to respectively facilitate public participation in their work. But did the government follow the proper framework for public participation, which include placing adverts in mainstream media, both print and electronic, and providing feedback mechanism through drafting and tabling of the resultant report? Time is ticking to 1st January 2024. Ode Francis, KTN News, Nairobi.
Pretty much what Ode Francis is telling you is that for you to be able to access government services, you'll have to dig deeper into your pocket, because according to that report, these services have the proposal is to increase them by up to 2,500, not shillings. VAT%. What that means to your pocket, only time will tell. And we are here to make sure that we bring you the very latest on what is happening, even as President William Ruto says the economy is stable. Now, as Kenya celebrates Jamhuri Day, it also joined the rest of the world in celebrating universal healthcare. President William Ruto has assured all Kenyans of healthcare services when they need it. KTN News Health and Science reporter Husna Mohammed has more on that story.
World Universal Healthcare Day is celebrated on December 12th each year. This is also the day that Kenyans were joining hands in marking Jamhuri Day. Well, it has been 60 years of independence, and Kenya is yet to make adequate progress in the provision of comprehensive healthcare services for her citizens. Universal health coverage is among the top agenda for the Kenya Kwanza government.
Our universal health coverage plan seeks a paradigm shift in the provision of healthcare from curative to a largely preventive and promotive approach.
The Universal Healthcare Day is observed to emphasize the need for a healthcare system that provides equitable and quality healthcare, along with financial protection to everyone who needs it.
Economic productivity and general well-being are significantly hampered by a population that is prone to ill health. Individual and family medical expenditure drain household incomes and erode family savings, in many cases leading to financial ruin and destitution.
On August 25th, President Ruto flagged off health kits to community health promoters as a way of preventing diseases through enhanced early diagnosis at the grassroots level.
I commend counties who have already paid community health promoters their stipends and commit that the national government will pay our portion beginning the end of this month.
Laws will later be passed by Parliament to accelerate the achievement of universal healthcare. According to the Social Health Insurance Fund, every Kenyan aged 18 years and above will be required to make a monthly contribution to the fund that will replace the NHIF. Failure to pay one will be fined and they'll be locked out of government services.
The laws we have enacted now provide a framework in the Emergency, Chronic and Critical Illness Fund that will liberate the people of Kenya from the burden of catastrophic hospital bills in the treatment of conditions like cancer, diabetes, hypertension, and other critical and chronic conditions. The new funding model that is fair, equitable, and progressive will see the government of Kenya, for the first time, pay the cost of health insurance for all vulnerable Kenyans who have no ability to pay.
Promises and ambitions have been pronounced. The proof of the pudding, as they say, is in the eating. Husna Mohammed, KTN News, Nairobi.
Now, Kenyans living in the United Kingdom know too well what it means to live in a country that once colonized them. This knowledge was perhaps laid bare in a historic move that saw Kenyan artists for the first time in history allowed to display Kenyan artwork in a London gallery. KTN's Timothy Otieno witnessed history in the making and found the following report where amateur artists got a chance to impress art enthusiasts.
At the heart of London's quiet streets, history is slowly unfolding in a room full of art lovers eager to learn more about Kenya as the country celebrates 60 years of independence. One of the art enthusiasts we come across is Teresa Masharia, who has been navigating this gallery, quenching her thirst for Kenyan creativity.
What has been your most interesting piece? Which one has caught your eye?
I would have to say it's Blossom of Garden by Simon Murray. It's just got this otherworldly essence to it, very similar to Sharon's work. We see a depiction of human life that doesn't have a very human figure. It's Sharon's work looks at a penguin as the feature, but in Marui's work, we don't even have a face. We have a flower and an eye as the center, as a representation of a being, with all these other details that speak to an essence that's deeper than what's surface.
Teresa forms part of an audience who traveled from far and wide to witness Kenya's first ever art exhibition in downtown London. Wilhelm Treffer traveled all the way from Germany to get to see the artwork displayed here today. He admits he's not much of an art enthusiast, but appreciates the difference in Kenyan artwork compared to that of his home country.
Kenyan art is very warm somehow, you know, and lively. And somehow it's like almost that the way Kenyan artists paint reflects a little bit how Kenya is as a country. So that's very interesting for me to see, you know. And also German people, they are like, I think we are a little like abstract, and so the German art is also more abstract in that way. So I found it interesting to see the difference.
The exhibition has been made possible through the collaboration of the Kenyan Embassy in the United Kingdom and saw more than 35 artworks put on display. The art has been composed by 30 different artists, all of whom are having their first piece exhibited in a foreign country for the very first time.
In the context of Kenya at 60, this is one of the flagship events we, the London Mission, are carrying forward with government departments to be able to show what is it as Kenyans we have done over this period.
These exhibitions will be part of celebrating young people, but also celebrating their creativity. Goes well with the theme of Jamhuri Day.
Sharon Gikonge just turned 22 years old a month ago and is among the artists whose work is being viewed here today. She considers herself a wildlife conceptual artist and believes more of such exhibitions need to be set up if Kenyan art is to scale higher heights.
I think this very moment is very pivotal to my art career because in Kenya it might be a bit limited, the exposure that our artwork gets, but having my work in London, which is a city that hails the greatest artists and exhibitions, I feel very honored to be given the chance to show my work to millions of people who are going to be here with us today.
It is also a privilege to see that we are exporting our skills. And for the young upcoming artists from the slums, you know, bringing them to United Kingdom, you know, to display their work and also sell and tap, you know, from the international community.
What's it like seeing Kenyan art in the UK?
It's awesome. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, I follow African art in the UK quite closely, and like I said, kind of, I'm looking for a couple of fairly large projects. I've been pretty systematic about it.
London serves as a global hub for contemporary art, and this fusion of Kenyan artistic traditions with London's cosmopolitan atmosphere is likely going to create a fascinating intersection of cultures, even as the country celebrates 60 years of self-rule. Timothy Otieno, KTN News, in London, the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Timothy. As famously known on the streets here, Standard Timo, a good man, giving us stories straight from London. And now let's go straight to the papers today in the dailies and just see what the papers are saying today. We start with the Kenya's bold newspaper, that is the Standard. And the story that carried the day is Ruto opens doors in visa gamble. Now, President William Ruto seeks to assuage Kenyans suffering, says painful experience of higher taxes is now paying off by pulling the country out of debt distress, and announces Kenya will be visa-free starting next month. The president says if you want to come to Kenya anytime, all the year, any day, all you need to do is to get authorization to get into the country, but no need of hassling looking for visa to come to Kenya, says Kenya embraces everybody. A conversation piece in the studio today. I will be having these together with Nerima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place. And still on the newspaper now, 68% current inflation rate, down from a high of 9.2% last year. In the last 6 months, that is, the GDP has grown at 5.4%, making Kenya 29th fastest growing economy globally. This is some of the statements that came from the president's speech yesterday as he was addressing the nation during the 60th Jamhuri Day celebration. How do you feel there at home, wherever it is you're watching me from? Is the situation better? Do you feel like the inflation has eased, or is it tougher? Talk to us on our social media pages at KTN News KE, at Dennis Aseto. We will be sampling some of your conversations on our social media platforms. But let's continue with 42 billion shillings, amount of money lent to 21 million Hustler Fund borrowers, making it the largest financial inclusion program in the country. The president says that Hustler Fund continues to offer that financial assistance to those he calls the hustlers, that the money now is at 42 billion shillings. Have you managed to borrow from Hustler Fund? How was the experience for you? Has your limit been increased, or did you just not get it entirely? Let's have a conversation on the Hustler Fund, even as tough questions on that fund continues to be had. And what 300 shillings, what the vulnerable will pay to access health coverage, down from 500 shillings as the government rolls out the framework to reform healthcare. This is with regard to the universal health coverage that President William Ruto launched not long ago, saying that every Kenyan deserves to have quality and affordable healthcare. Those who are unable to pay 500 shillings, the NHIF, now there is SHIFT, Social Health Insurance Fund, that is in place. We remember that there is now an act of parliament. The president assented to that bill not long ago, effecting a shift into the public that you will be using to access healthcare in the country. And if you go just President William Ruto, let's just quote what it said: "It shall no longer be necessary for any person from any corner of the globe to carry the burden of applying for a visa to come to Kenya." But if you want to go to other countries, are they embracing Kenya the way we are embracing them? And how will us opening our borders to everybody affect the country, even when it comes to matters to do with revenue that we get from visa applications? I mean, that's a conversation piece that we will be having in here. And 31 number of active housing development sites employing 120,000 people. Another 31 are undergoing evaluation, while others are in various stages of design. This is with regard to the affordable housing that President William Ruto is championing, making sure that Kenyans are able to get affordable houses. And these as well, it will be remembered, various groups went to the court. I remember the opposition and various civil society groups went to court opposing the inclusion of the housing levy. And even just recently, the court pronounced itself on this matter, saying that it is unconstitutional. The government is now trying to legalize that through parliament. Let's just see how that will go. And 4 million number of learners to receive coding training under KICD approved program in collaboration with Google and other partners. Now, that is all about KICD and the new curriculum, and the fact that the globe, the world is going digital, and the government is not slacking behind. The government is not sleeping, making sure that they also get on that, making sure that Kenyans are able to code, Kenyans are able to get access to the digital life, the world that we now is going global in a very tiny way. But now that is in partnership with Google. You also mentioned issues to do with Meta and the fact that they will start monetizing so that creatives can be able to earn a living from the creative works that they are doing. The president also touching on the fact that Hollywood will be coming to Kenya and movies will be shot in the country. These, as creatives, also have an opportunity to not only focus on local and regional markets, but going global as well. And we go to underneath that is Kenyans expect fuel prices to fall. This is tomorrow. EPRA is expected to be giving its report, but remember there's a court order that is asking EPRA not to review those higher. We see how that will go, whether EPRA will review their prices. Remember, even a while back with the Omtata case and the court pronouncing itself on that, EPRA still went ahead and reviewed their price. Will it be the same situation this time round? We wait to see tomorrow, as EPRA will be coming to us on that. And Unilever and a probe in the UK. British competition watchdog opens investigation into where the fast moving consumer goods giant is making claims that do not add up, and a man roots for peace despite kings killing, and that is Israeli tech billionaire whose youngest daughter, Eyal Waldman, was killed by Hamas, wants change and believes that Palestinians should have a state. That is just some of the stories that are making headlines. And before I actually even leave this thunder, let's just go straight to on the side this story that Kenyan superstars on top of the world. That is with regard to our athletes. We have Faith Kipyegon and Kelvin Kiptum scoop World Athlete of the Year honors as Faith Cherotich and Emmanuel Wanyonyi win the Rising Star category at the 2023 Global Awards. The president equally fitting Faith Kipyegon and other athletes for a job well done. They continue keeping Kenya, putting Kenya on the map, making us look good. She's looking good in that dress. And also Kiptum, the man who broke the world marathon record, also with his award right there. We continue to celebrate our athletes across the world. But now let's just go straight to the Daily Nation. Now, the Daily Nation today, the top story on the Daily Nation as we wait for it to load. Meanwhile, the Daily Nation says Ruto, Kenya is on the right track. Now, this is on the Daily Nation as they continue to give us, that is the President William Ruto, as he was going through the guard of honor, inspecting the guard of honor, and some of the stories that are making headlines here. If we just see on Azimio wants Sabina Chege to refund packs for Jubilee Weep, Raila Odinga has also taken issue with that and wants Sabina Chege to that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Wetangula, to address that. But now let's go to the other paper, that is the People Daily. Now, Kenya turns 60, rich history of highs and lows. At the dawn of independence on December 12, 1963, Kenya faced many challenges, including poverty, ignorance, and disease, as stated by founding President Jomo Kenyatta. Over 6 decades, President Daniel Arap Moi, Mwai Kibaki, Uhuru Kenyatta, and now William Ruto have steered the nation through tough times on the journey to self-determination. Where are we as a country 60 years later? Are we having it better? Are we having it easy? And yes, indeed. Now, I'm being informed that Kevin Osido will be joining us via Zoom. He is connected as we speak right now. Kevin Osido, good morning. How are you doing? Where are you joining us from now on that issue as we wait to just fix? Let's go to the Nation, that is Taifa Leo. Taifa Leo as well has what is important, and majirani watuhepa, that is according to Taifa Leo. But mbona majirani watuhepa? Now let's just have these, and it says hatua ya viongozi wa mataifa jirani na ya kigeni kukosa kuhudhuria sherehe za Jamhuri Day jijini Nairobi imeibua maswali kuhusu mtizamo wao kuhusu sera za serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Hali hii ni tofauti na Rais William Ruto ambaye amekuwa akitumia mialiko anayopata kuzuru mataifa mbali jirani Afrika na ng'ambo, just pointing to the fact that local leaders, our neighbors, did not attend the meeting, that is the Jamhuri Day celebrations, even as the president continues going to those events whenever he is invited. And 18,200, that is watu 18,200 wafa katika vita eneo la Gaza. Itakumbuka kuwa kuna Hamas na nchi ambayo ni Israeli ambao wako kwenye mapigano sasa hivi, na pia wataka suluhu ya kudumu kwa mafuriko. Floods is such a big problem in the country today, and we continue dealing with that on a daily basis. And also on the side, amebuni mtandao wa ajira katika soko la kuku. That is just another inventor out there creating an opportunity for everybody. But now, that is what is on the dailies. We shall be getting back there a little bit later. But in studio with me is Narima Wako, Executive Director, Siasa Place. Karibu sana. Happy to see you. Today, Kenya is 60 years old. Are we better 60 years later?
Oh, there are many things that we are better, some we could improve, but it's hard to believe that we are 60. It was interesting to see some views from the public where some people were not sure whether we were 60 or not, but I would say I'm proud to be Kenyan. Yeah.
Proud to be Kenyan. That is Nerime Wako, as well as Kevin Osido is joining us via link. Good morning, Kevin. Where are you joining us from, and how are you 60 years of being in Kenya? How is it for you, Kevin?
Thank you so much, Dennis. 60 years down the line for me is a little bit confusing. Not so sure that I am 60 or that we are 60, but indeed the fact of the matter is that we are 60, and true to the fact is that numbers don't lie.
Kevin Osido, numbers don't lie. 60 is confusing. I mean, conversation piece right there. But now I think let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, we get straight into the papers, make sense of the president's speech. Where are we in terms of the economy, universal healthcare, education, and all manner of sorts as we make sense of Kenya at 60 and just other stories that are making sense and making headlines this morning. See you in a few right here on Morning Prime.